Hello, welcome again to this tutorial that will cover a number of things that builds up from our previous tutorial. If I may show what we intend to cover. We intend to cover how to handle the story settings and will require a section through your building. So kindly look at the section of your building and have it close. We're going to handle the project location and the project north. So we'll require your Google coordinates to handle that. We are going to create lines. We are going to create symbol fields. And in this case, you're going to use a brick. You need to know your symbol fill motif and the size of the motif. We are going to create an image fill, again, based on our brick. But for you, because you'll do a number, you need to get those various image fills or the tileable image in top view. We are going to create surfaces. So you require again the same image in top view. You're going to create building materials. You need to have finished your surfaces and you need to have finished your fields. You're going to import drawings. So you need the survey map and maybe even the section. Last but not least, we are going to interpret the survey map and cut and draft it so that we have an idea of how our site looks like. So without wasting so much time, let us go through this process. Now, let us start with the story settings. We'll continue the project of the boundary wall. Within it, we'll just continue, and maybe within the view map of outline proposal, we'll create a, in fact, let's just call it assignment 2. And also within it, we are going to create we're going to create a worksheet. On that worksheet, let's call it building section. Now, the first thing that I want to do is to import the section to help us understand how we put up our story settings. So let's go through the process of importing. So you click the drawing tool. With the drawing tool active, if I click on that space, I'll be asked to look for it. And with that, I will look for it. So my drawing tool is an image. My sample section, sorry, it's an image. So I will just click it and I'll import it. There it is. So that is the process of importing a drawing. Okay. This one I've borrowed from a project of a student, but ideally is to help us understand how we handle our levels and handle them properly. Now, there are things I want us to take note of. One is that we have a sloping site. We have an undulating site. So it's always critical to have an understanding of your undulating site. And in our case, we'll use this point here as our actual ground level. So that being our actual ground level, we can clearly pick up where our ground floor slab will be. Okay, we can easily pick up where our first floor slab will be. And we can easily pick up where our roof slab will be. So as you can see, these are not things that we are guessing, but they're based on logic. And the logic in this context is you understanding your site properly, okay? And again, based on that, we'll know where our lower ground floor, now that it's stacked on a slope, will be. I'll want to give the level dimensions for that. Now, if I was to put level dimensions, I will use a 0, 0 for my actual ground level. Then my ground floor, the rule of thumb, especially in Kenya, it must be at least 300 above the actual ground level. So for me, that one I can put at 300. And then from there, I believe that the floor to floor is 3 meters. So if that is 300, this one will be plus 3,300. And this one will be plus 6,300. Now, with that, we have gotten our floor finish levels. We also need to identify the depth of our beams and the depth of our slabs. Now, in this context, the student has deliberately used hollow pot. And for the hollow pot, we can give it a depth of 300. And then for the beam, we can also give it a depth of another 300, so total will be 600. So if I can use a different material for those two, it means that my slab will be up to 6,000. So as you can see, we are not second guessing anything, but we have a thorough understanding of how our story behaves. And that one will be plus 5,700. Okay, if I proceed on with the lower floor, that'll be the same language. And this one will be plus 33, plus 3,000, and this one will be plus 2,700. Now, for the ground floor, I'll want to deal with it a little bit differently, in the sense that a portion of it is a ground floor slab, and a portion of it a suspended floor slab. Okay, so we'll have the extent of our beam, which I'll presume to be still 600. So with that, I can easily bring that one that shows the extent of our beam. Okay, and number 2, seeing a small mix up here. In our building, you can see there's a step, and then we have a step. Let's still work with the 300. Okay, let's still work with the 300. So if this is plus 300, it only means that where we have a beam for the suspended floor, this one can only be minus 300. And then in our case, since we are doing a solid slab, the solid slab, we can work with 200 instead of 300. So for the case of the solid slab, it will be at plus 100. Okay. And then if you go to the lower ground, the fact that it's 3 meters, it will be 3,000 minus 3 meters, which will be minus 2,700. So that one I can comfortably write there, minus 2,700. And since it's a solid slab of 200, it means that this one will be at minus 2,100. And then what does it mean about our actual ground level down here? Our actual ground level down here will be 300 below our slab finish. So if I take somewhere there, it's going to be minus 2,700 minus 300. So it's going to be minus 3,000. So up to that level, you can see that we are not guessing anything, but we are having a thorough understanding about how our story is behaving. Now, with that at the back of our mind, we need to do the story settings. Okay. And the story settings, the shortcut is Control-7. The only challenge at this level is that there will be a clash between story settings that I'd put for the boundary wall and the story settings that we want to put right now, because they are not the same. This one I'm demonstrating how to put story settings for a building. So in that case, I don't lose nothing. All I'll just select all what I've done. And then I'll create a new file using the latest information. And I will save this one. I will not go through those initial processes because you have gone through them, but allow me to quickly create a worksheet. And in that worksheet, allow me to paste what I've just worked on. So as you can see, we now have a clear understanding of how our building section works. Now, based on that, I want us to create the story settings that will reflect this. Now, in my practice, I've always seen the need of separating, especially the beams and the slabs from our walls. Most of us always get that challenge of trying to look for what is where. So one of the easiest ways is by separating those stories and then manipulating your story settings so that it just shows what you need or just shows what you want. So we are going to go through that. So with that, let's go to our story settings. As I've said, the shortcut is Control-7, keyboard shortcut. Now, of importance is this elevation and the height to next. I'll repeat again, the critical part is this elevation and the height to next. You must know your elevation and you must know your height to next so that you have confidence in what you are doing, okay? So in my case, I know my actual ground level is at 0, okay? Let's go through it again. My actual ground level is at 0. And then we have the level of our floor being at 300. And then we have the invert of our floor being at +100. And then did we identify the position of the beams? Now that we have beams on this other side, it is 300, our beams is minus 300, okay? So you must have that information with you, okay? So in my case, if I revisit what I've done, above, if I insert above, basically I'll be inserting anything above my actual ground level. I have a +100. So height to that +100 is 100. Okay, and if I write that, you'll clearly see there. So I can call this one invert of ground floor slab. So the invert of my ground floor slab, the lower part of my ground floor slab, I'm doing this because a portion of it is suspended, is that much. Then if I insert above, I will have the top of ground floor slab. From the invert to the top is 200, the thickness of our slab. And you see, by adjusting that, the elevation will automatically adjust itself. So you can see the need of you having a thorough understanding of what you are doing, okay? We know very well that the invert of our ground floor slab beam is minus 300, this one here. So for me to fix the minus 300, I will insert below and I will say invert of ground floor beam. I know it's minus 300. So the only difference will be 300. So if I fix 300 there, it will automatically adjust to minus 300. So the key thing, and I'll repeat, is that you must have a thorough understanding of your building section. So with that, allow me to quickly handle the rest. So I'll say okay for now. I'll go to my first floor. Let's have a look at it. The top of the slab stroke the bottom of the wall is plus 300. Okay. Then the invert of our beam stroke the top of the wall is plus 2700. So that one, I need to capture it. So let's go. Let's go to the story setting. So at this level, I can even clearly say that one is the top of the slab stroke bottom of ground floor wall. I just want clarity so that we don't have any problem. Now, from plus 300 to plus 2700 is 2400. So I can clearly say head to next is 2400. And that one will give me the invert of first floor beam. Which is 2700. You can see that correlation, okay? Then between the invert of the first floor beam and the invert of our first floor slab, remember it's a hollow pot, it's a difference of 300. So I'll just add again and say invert of first floor slab. The difference between the two is 300. So if I type 300 there, sorry, it's this one, 300. It should take me to plus 3000, which clearly shows the invert of our first floor slab. And then from there, we'll have the top of our first floor slab. So if I insert above, then I just copy this information and talk about top of first floor slab and bottom of first floor wall. Being another 300, it takes us to plus 3300. And then I'll do the same for the upper level. So if I insert above, I'll talk about invert of roof. Let me call it the roof beam. That one again, the difference is 2400. And if you look at the total, it comes to 57. You can see that 57 is there. Okay. Then after invert of roof beam, we'll talk about invert of roof slab. The invert of the roof slab is 300. Okay, so it gives us plus 6000, and then we'll have the top of roof slab. And we can clearly say it's a top of roof slab and maybe the bottom of parapet wall. That one is 300. User 6300. We have not talked about the parapet wall, but let's just give it a 1 meter for now. Okay, so that one clearly shows our stories. Okay, And of critical importance is that you will see that these dimensions that we have here in terms of levels have a correlation with what we have put. Let us handle the lower ground floor. For the lower ground floor, we have already handled the invert of the beam is at -300. So we have the top of our lower ground floor slab, which is the bottom of our lower ground floor wall. The difference between the two is from -300 to -2700 is 2400. So I will just copy that, and then I'll come here and then I will insert below. So I'll say top of lower ground floor slab, and then bottom of lower ground floor wall. We know that the difference between the two is 2400. So if I type 2400, the elevation will automatically adjust itself to -2700. And then we have the invert of our lower ground floor slab. So allow me to place that one. That one is 200. So our level will be -2900. And then from there, we have a 100 for the level of our lower actual ground level. Okay, so I can easily copy that one. And I will insert below and say actual lower ground level. And we know the difference there is 100. So my friends, you must understand your section. You must understand your building section. If you don't understand your building section, then it will be a challenge for you to do your story settings. So allow me to finish at that point. And as you can see, the stories have all been created that reflect what you're talking about. I want us to go back to the story settings a little bit again. Now, this column here is what you usually manipulate to show what you want to see and what you don't want to see. And that one maybe can be clearly seen when you cut a section. So allow me to quickly cut a section. Though our site is blank, let's just cut a section and let us open it. Using the default settings, you can see that all those things have been placed, okay? Maybe I don't want to show the invert of the slab, okay? If I don't want to show the invert of the roof slab, or let's say all the slabs, I'll just come here and untick. So anything that has an invert of the roof slab, I'll just untick. When you untick, basically, it will not be shown, but you don't lose that information. So let's just say, okay. And as you can see now, this one is just like our standard story or our standard section. It does not show those nitty-gritties. But at the end of the day, since you are building and we are building up information and we are modeling based on that information, our information still stays. So that is critical for our story settings. So with that, allow me to check that we are done with the story settings. The next step will be to look at our project location and our project north. Now, The project location, again, you must have your coordinates. In my case, I have my coordinates there here. Okay. So I need to integrate these coordinates into my ArchiCAD file. So how do you do it? You copy one of the coordinates, and then if I go to project preference and I go to set project north, just 1 minute, project preference, and then we go to project location settings, sorry. I'll paste the latitude given. What you'll notice is that this one is in metric format, while what we have is in imperial. So let me just paste and we see what happens. If I paste, it will be automatically converted to imperial, and whether it's north or south of the latitude will be shown. Okay. I'll do the same for my longitude. Come and copy that. We had already done a tutorial of getting your contour, your coordinates. So kindly revert to that if you are not sure of how to do it. And then I will paste it there. Again, it will automatically adjust itself. The time we put Nairobi. The altitude, I will not put it for now. I'll leave it that way. Okay. We'll handle the north later. Now, for these details, especially if you know your survey information, you can easily put it. Okay. But for now, I'll want to reconfirm that whatever coordinates I have is the site that I'm dealing with. So if I say show in Google Maps, it will automatically run in Google Maps. And in my case, if I open the survey, it takes me to my site. Remember that this is a site that I was using. It takes me to my site. So please always ensure that you place your coordinates properly. If you don't do that, or if you do not change it, the default settings are usually the Graphisoft headquarters. So it's important that you adjust your coordinates properly. Okay. So allow me to say okay and check off that part that we have handled our location. What I might not have handled is a project north. The project north is straightforward. If I know my project, by default, the north usually looks up. It's normally vertical, the vertical direction of your worksheet. So in our case, if I was to put it, I have various options, but I always like using the tool. And see it here. So I'll just pick up the north symbol and place. You have various choices you can choose from. The most critical part is that you must always follow the project north. So if I say okay, I can just come and place my project north. So let's do with that for now, though at some point we are going to adjust 2 or 3 things. So with that, we are done with the project north. So I'm continuing to check off my list. So let's go to creating of lines. Now, this is part of creating your attributes. And once in a while, you'll find that you want to create a line that's maybe not part of the default lines. Okay, as you can see, for me, my template has various lines, but I want us to learn the process of creating that line. Okay, suppose I want to create an arrow line. Okay, all what I need to do is to even draft it because you have your basic solid line. So if I draft, let's say I want an arrow line, I'll even put at scale 1:1. I want an arrow line of 5 millimeters. And that arrow line, maybe I want it to have an arrowhead. The arrowhead, I want it to look like that. Okay. Maybe I might want to reduce the size of the arrowhead so that it's proportional. And then maybe I want a pattern that looks like that. So if that's the kind of line that I'm looking for, I'll just come to my line tool. I'll create new and say dashed arrowhead. Okay. And if I use my symbol and say okay, all what I need to do is to paste. Let me just paste. As you can see, it has been pasted. Okay. And it is deliberately showing my lines and my gaps. Okay. So let me just say okay and see what we are getting. I might also want to rename it. Let me call it dashed arrowhead. So if I say okay, I can manipulate the size of the dash. Maybe I want it at 5 millimeters. Then I want the gap at 2 millimeters. Okay. So if I say okay, that line will have been created. Let us just try and draw it and see what we are getting. Call it a dashed arrowhead. Here it is. Okay. So you'll notice it has picked up the 4. Let's just measure its dimension so that you see the correlation. If I measure from here to here, it's the 5 millimeters. Okay. So it has picked up this and reduced it to 5 millimeters. Was that my intention? No. My intention was to pick up one line and then we have a space. So instead of copying all of it, I just need to copy that one. Okay. And then go to my line. Let me look for it again. Just arrowhead. And then I paste. Now, you see there's a lot of similarity now between what I've done and what I've pasted. So if I say okay, and I adjust my line, it is fine. The only problem is now the scale and the size. I know this distance. If I measure, this is 5 millimeters. Then we have a dash of 2 millimeters. So I just need to do that for my line. So I know that this dash is 5 millimeters and I know the gap is 2 millimeters. If I say okay, you'll see now we have a line that is similar to what I desired. Okay, so that's how we create the lines. So that allowed me to take that. We are done with that. The next one will be to create a symbol fill. Now, for the symbol, again, it is important for you to understand the material that you want to symbolize or the material you want to represent. In my case, I will use a brick whose size is 225 by 110 by 75. This is a predominant brick size. It was standard brick in Kenya. So based on that, I'll want to create a fill. So how do you create that fill? Create that fill by first of all drawing that template. As you have seen, on elevation is going to be 225 by 75. So I'll come here, look for a standard solid line, and I'll draw. I've said it's how much? 225 by 75. So I'll do 225. Maybe I might now want to reduce the scale, maybe to 1 to 10. So I'll draw 225. Then by 75. Now for some of us who are accustomed to how we build in this country, for this we'll give a mortar of maybe 15. So that will be 240. Okay, again, depending on the kind of bricks that you're working with. And then, so if I was to quickly do an elevation, if I spread at 240, we'll have something like that. And then if I have to place a course or two above it, it will be half of 240. Okay, so if I was to create that motif, I will spread it at 180. How are we getting 180? Let's quickly do it. This is 75. That is 15. Okay, so double of that will now create the pattern that we are looking for. So at 180. So with that, it gives us the pattern of our brick wall. Now, what we need to do is to identify a motif that will be used to create our brick wall. If I quickly pick up, if I take the center of this part here, and also take the center at that point there, and take the center at this point here. If you realize this point, there's a lot of correlation between this point and that point. From this point going this way, you don't know, it's a repetition, okay? So for us, that should be the motif that we are looking for. So if I can use a different color of line, that is what we'll consider to be our motif. So all what you need to do is to pick up that motif and then use it to create our symbol, fill. So allow me just to pick up just that part only. And then now all what I'll do, I'll cut off anything that's out of and the beauty is that that symbol, we know the size of the motif, it's 180 by 240. So all what I need to do is to pick up that motif. I will copy it. After copying, I will go to fills. In our case, we want to create a symbol fill. Okay, so let us call it Kenya brick. So if I say okay, all what I need to do is to paste my pattern. You already have it there. And then we are sure about the size. It's 165 by 180. Okay. And if you see, if we just 180, that will adjust itself. Let us look at it. It gives us the pattern of what we are looking for. And the more we zoom out, the more we get our brick wall. So with that, we are done with our symbol fill. So you need to practice by doing so many types of materials, especially the ones we are seeing on elevation, okay? So that you're able to learn how to create your own attribute. So with that, we are done. So allow me to also check that. I would want to create a similar image fill. ArchiCAD 25, 26 are so versatile. You can create both symbol and image. And you can even use them to do your presentation. So I want to create an image fill that is similar to what we have shown as our symbol. So as we saw, our brick is 225 by 75. All what I need to do is to look for a tileable image that is similar to that. And how do we get it? Maybe let me even start with the image. In my case, I have an image from vectorstock.com that shows a brick wall. There are so many websites where you can get those images. So if I just type masonry tileable textures, I'll get millions, okay? And the keyword there is the tileable, so that it gives you that seamless, those images that you can use as seamless textures, okay? And in our case, it was masonry. So when you do that, you'll get millions. So it's up to you to choose what works for you, and then you further edit it from there. So based on that, I'll want to use this. I'll show it again. I'll want to use this vector stock to create my own image fill for the brick, okay? So let's go through the process. The bit that I'm doing this in the context of this elevation that I've already created a symbol fill. So what I'll quickly do is to import that fill, that image, sorry, okay? And once I've imported, it even gives me a chance to even scale it to enable me understand it properly, okay? So those hotspots are indicating the centers of two courses. So with that, I can easily place a hotspot there. So let me use my hotspot, let me place it there. And then after two courses, let me place another hotspot there. Okay, so if I select those two hotspots together with my fill, I just want to align it with my hotspot in the drawing, which is there. And then I want to resize it so that I start having an idea of whether this one works for me. So how do I resize? Control K. I draw the line of the current size to that one. then draw the line of what I'm looking for. So there it is, okay? Let me just overlay this one on this and we see how it behaves. If you overlay it, you see there are some small losses in terms of scale and proportion, simply because this brick is not 225. This brick is smaller, now 225, and as a result, it's creating that small problem. Nevertheless, we'll still use it. Now, just like what we did for our symbol, I'll want to pick up a motif. And this time round, I'll want even to pick up a bigger one. So this one is one motif, okay? If I pick it up to that point, will be another motif, okay? If I pick it up to that point, it will be, so 1, 2, 3. There are 3 equivalents of the motif that I used here, okay? Then I'll want to pick up, let's say, even 3 more lengths. So for the length is basically the size of a brick. So if I pick 1, 2, 3, and we lose nothing by even starting here. So let me just take my hotspots. Let me push it here. And push this other one here. So as you can see, here our motif was 1 brick, but here our motif is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you can comfortably say it's 4. Well, this is a 1 by 1 motif. This is 1, 2, 3, 4 by 1, 2, 3. Okay, the beauty is that we know the size of our motif. So if this is the size of our motif, 180 by 240, we can logically say that that one will be 180 times 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, so it's a 540. Okay, thereabout, some small errors, but they're manageable. And then we have our 240. Remember, the width of our brick is not 240, slightly smaller. So even if we dimension it, we have 4, but not be exactly 960. But at least we have an idea of where we are, okay? Now, based on that, I'll want now to highlight my motif that is equivalent to what we are looking for. So if I can adjust this one I expect to use 540. And this one I expect to use 960. So I'll stretch it a little bit, 960. So with that, I'll cut off what I don't want to see. So I need it up to that point. 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 So that one is a motif that we can easily replicate and create our brick wall. Okay, so we want us to do it and we see what we are getting. Now, I just need to make a copy of that and save it as an image, and that's what I'll use to replicate. So allow me to, so that I don't mess up with my hotspots, allow me to zoom, to drag a copy and then to zoom in. So I'm zooming in. So for me, that's a good representation. So all what I need to do is to get that template. So how do I get the template? If I just use a basic tool like the sniping tool, I can get it, okay? So let me use my sniping tool. So with the sniping tool, just need to take that corner and this corner. Very perfect, but at least we are somewhere. So with that, let's look for it in our sniping tools. Hope it was activated. It's not activated, so allow me to do it again. So I want that corner, that corner. So again, just an issue of practice. Okay. So with that, we have our template. So I will save it. So I will call it image fill for brick. So I want to use that template to do now my fill. Okay. Now, how do we do it? If we go to fills and I say new and I say image fill, and I call it, let me call it Kenya brick wall, so that I'm very specific. Say okay. All what I need to do is to import the image. So this one you don't paste, you just browse and look for it. If I browse and look for it, it's among us the thing that I've just done. So if I say image fill brick, or I can even go specifically to where it is so that I'm very sure of what I'm picking. So here it is. So if I say okay and say okay, there it is, and say okay, it's imported. Remember, we talked about the length. This one, we said it's 960. And you'll notice that for us to retain the scale, the proportion, it will automatically adjust itself. But now that I want to distort the proportion a little bit, I will move the proportion and I'll put what I want there, okay? So it will be stretched a little bit, okay? And then that one gives you a view of how the elevation will look like, which I think for me is within the range, okay? I will want you to explore the various mirroring methods and which one works for your image and which one does not work. So once you have done that, you say, okay, that will have done our image fill. Let's try and use it. It's part of the image fills. We have called it Kenya brick. Kenya brick wall, there it is. The pen weights, you must always control them. Okay, so let me just place and see what we are getting. As you can see, there's a small issue there simply because of the image where the exposure here is different from the exposure there. So you'll notice something small, slightly, okay? Let us try and change the mirroring method and see if that one will help us. Let me use this option, we see what we are getting. I believe that is better, okay? So with that, we'll have created our image fill. The process of creating surfaces is just similar. So I just need to use the same image fill. So I'll come here and say surfaces. And I'll create a new one. I can duplicate and then edit. So let me call it Kenya brick wall. So if I say okay, I'll come and add the texture. Again, the same process. So we have our image, okay? And we know that the template is 960 by 540. We have also seen that if you use this second option of mirroring, it makes it better, okay? So with that, as you can see, it gives us a preview. What you must always remember is that you will want to reflect the same on these other engines. So all what I need to do is to match from basic, and you can see it quickly adjusts for me. Hardware acceleration, I think that is good enough, okay? So I'll just return to our basic engine. So with that, we'll have created our surface. So I'll say, okay. Let's just place something, even if it's a morph. Let's just use the morph tool quickly. And I just want to see how that surface looks like. So if I select that morph and it now will just override the surface and use the Kenya masonry. Let's look for it where we placed it. Kenya brick wall and say, okay, let's look at it in 3D. You can see that that reflects what we have just created. Okay, so with that, I think we can also take that one that we have done. Now, it's always critical to create your fields both as a symbol and as an image and a surface, because you need those 2 or 3 items to create a building material. So I want to create a building material for my brick wall. Let's go through the process. So for the building material, come to option, building materials. Let me create a new one, okay? And let me call it Kenya brick wall. So if I say okay, all what I need to do is to give the cut surface and then to give the general. So there are 2 issues here. We need the cut surface. How does it look like on plan? Remember that one you have not yet done, so we can quickly do it. And how does it look generally? Now for generally, there's something that I want to look at again. If we go to that surface, you can put a foreground, okay? And this foreground, now what we are going to use, we are going to use the elevational fill that we created. So let me look for it, call it Kenya brick wall. I am not seeing it here simply because I did not assign it to be a cover fill. So allow me to correct that. So if I go to my fills and look for my Kenya brick wall, it was part of the vectorial or this symbol. I think they are symbol. Yeah, it is. All what I need to do, I need to show how I want to use it. I want to use it as a drafting fill. I want to use it as a cover fill. I don't want to use it as a cut fill because we just want to see it. So with that, if I say okay, let's go back again to our surface. Now I can use it as a cover fill. Let's look for it. I believe we have it. There it is. Okay. And I can go to an accent or even defining the pen that I want to use. Maybe I want to subdue it. I don't want it to scream so much. So I can use that light brown. So if I say okay, anytime we place that surface and we generate the elevation, those features will be shown. So allow me to quickly create the cut fill. Okay. Now for the cut fill, again, it's a straightforward thing. How do we represent masonry? We represent masonry by basically using double lines, a single line, depending again on the scale that you're working on, okay? So what will be the spacing of my lines? Let us see, it's 100, okay? I feel it might be a bit too squeezed, so let me work with 200, okay? So, so with that, I can easily pick up my motif. And if I draw that motif up to that point, that one we are good to go. And the question will be that, do we need anything there? No. So that one gives me the motif. Then the same process, anything outside the motif, it's advisable to make a copy so that in case you make an error, you don't have to repeat it all over again. Anything outside the motif, let's just cut it off. And with that, I can easily pick that. What is the size? Size is 800 by 200. So if I copy that, then I go to my fields and just create a new field, which is symbolic. Then I will call it Kenya Brick Plan. So if I say okay, I paste it, and then it's 800 by 200. So this one is okay. Okay. And if you can see the pattern just automatically come out. So if I say okay, we are done with that. I might want to go and change the other one and rename it Kenya Brick Elevation. So if I say okay, I've created a fill. Let's just use it. It's a vectorial. Oh, sorry, it's a symbol. Go to the symbol. Here it is. So let's just try and draw it and see. Are you getting what you're looking for? Yes. Okay. So up to that point, we are fine. Now let's go to our building material. Our building material is a merger between your cut fill, your surface, and your elevation fill. So let's go and create it. So go to building materials, create new, and create the Kenya brick. Okay. Now this brick wall, we are interested in the cut fill, which is the Kenya brick plan. Okay. We can even define the colors that you want to see. Do you want it transparent or do you want a white background? Okay. Orientation, I will advise you to retain it to the project origin. And then what surface do you want? We have created a Kenya brick. Let's look for it. Created a Kenya brick. Remember, within that brick wall, you have already embedded how we want our elevation to be. Okay. Now, besides that, you need to build up the information in your model. Remember that we are doing building information modeling. Okay. So the information is very important. So like the ID, if we have a coding system, so maybe for me, I can use my name, and maybe for now, let's assume that that's how I'm classifying it. I'm sure where I can get it. So for me, I'll write Kenya Clay Products. This description, so I can write the size 225 mm times 75 mm times 125, if I'm not wrong, times 110 times 110 times 75 mm. Does it participate in collision detection? Yes. Collision detection is something that will handle in later stages of BIM. One of the critical things about BIM, or one of the major advantages, is that it aids in clash detection, so that you avoid the situations where you have various clashes. And for some of us who have studied BIM in detail, you have soft clashes, you have hard clashes, you have work clashes. So that helps in sorting out the issue. But at this level, let's just put it that it participates. The details will handle later. The catalog, we are doing a brick, so we must have the physical properties of the brick, okay? There cannot be zero, so you need to get that information, which if you want to, you can get. But the beauty is that with ArchiCAD, we have some preset material catalogs, so we can look for a material that matches what you are looking for. I don't know whether you can get masonry, stones. Up asphalt and clay, maybe this one is close to what you are looking for. So I can use the solid brick one. Just notice that once I click it, those are preset figures. They will automatically adjust itself. Okay. For you, it might not be critical. However, remember that we'll collaborate. Okay. So for an MEP consultant, that will be critical. For the structural engineer, density will be critical. Okay. For us to calculate issues of embodied energy, it's critical. Okay. So all that needs to be placed so that if we say okay, we'll have a building material. I want us to quickly, just again using the MOF tool. This case, we are not going to fiddle with that being a MOF tool. This case, we are not going to override surface, but rather we are going to call it Kenya 1. Remember, I had given it a code, so I'm trying to look for it. I think it's just like looking for a needle in hay. So allow me to quickly revisit and see how I coded it, building materials. And it is lost in all this information. There it is. So I just need to look for Oyuga 0101. Okay, as you can see, it's lost because they have a lot of information. That's why you need to create your own classification systems. For now, let's create our own. Advanced levels will use the various, we have predefined classification systems, but for now, for you to have an understanding, let's create our own. So I need to go look for Oyuga 0101. Let me look for it again. I hope I'll get it. Seem not to see it. Oyuga 0101. To make my life easier, allow me even just to give it a front code so that I'm able to pick it up quickly. So where is our OY? Here it is, okay? So allow me to just say A so that I'm able to pick it up quickly. And want to also use that under my name. I say, okay, let's look for that building material. Hope this time around we'll not have a problem. There it is, okay? I will deliberately not override surfaces. Now, going forward, once you have created your building materials, you don't need to override any surfaces. You just need to use the default building materials. Remember that you are collaborating. And within this collaboration is not just about the beautiful renders that you'll give, but for someone like the quant surveyor, things like surfaces will be critical. What is the area of that brick wall? Okay, so in the event that you override the surfaces, then you'll have a challenge. So let's just say okay, and let's look at it. Literally, there will be no major difference between what we had and what we have. Okay, you can only notice the difference if we select both of them. Let me revert this one to the original, which is not, as you can see, the original is in situ. So if I say K and I select the two, then you'll see the difference, okay? So this one, if I reinforce the building material or if I enforce the building material to come out as concrete, this one will come out as brick, simply because of the material that has been selected there, the building material. So as you can see, doing the building material is very critical. You must learn how to do it. So we are done with that. I want us to handle the survey map again. We had already handled importing drawings. Remember that we imported our section. So right now, I want us to interpret survey drawings and draft our survey boundaries. Now, I might do a detailed presentation of this by representing the various documents that you have for our survey. In Kenya, we have the deed plan and most of the times the survey map, okay? Deed plans, again, over time, they have been done differently. And if you get the old ones, they're usually more detailed. And from them, you can easily draft your site dimensions, okay? The new ones, you'll find that they're just to scale. You just have to measure, which at the end of the day, it requires your clarity or your accuracy, okay? For some of us who know the trends of where we are in Kenya, we have started to digitize some of these things. So you'll find that the digitized versions tend to be similar to the deed plans. So they have quite an amount of information. So allow me to use what I will consider to be common, where you just have a survey map that is to scale. So allow me to use that, okay? Now, with that, I will want to create another worksheet, and let me call it the survey. So if I create that worksheet and import my drawing, there it is. As I've said, in a detailed presentation, I'll even show how you can use these listings and all things to go or draft. But for now, my interest will be just that part. For me, I'm lucky. I have survey map of a site whose dimensions are known. So, and the beauty is that the north is predefined. That is our north. That is our north. So all what I need to do is to scale my drawing. And scaling of the drawing involves maybe using the longest dimension possible. For me, if I talk about longest dimension that I have and I can read is that. Okay, and that dimension is 145.40 meters, okay? So all what I need to do is to select my drawing and then scale. For some of us, we are used to the shortcuts, but you just use resize. I want to do it graphically. So if I say okay, I will first of all define my first line, which is that much. I will click once, and then from it, I'll be asked to adjust by showing the dimension that I want to adjust it to. I want to adjust it to 145.40 meters. So that is 145,400. So if I say okay, there it is adjusted, okay? So with that, I'll want to even quickly place my dimension and see. So if I place it there, sorry, I am dimensioning, so I want to dimension that and that. Again, an issue of scale. This is so huge, so I just have to reduce the scale. So you can see it's more or less correct. Let me use 1,000 for now. Okay. Now, on the flip side, this scaling is usually not so perfect. Okay. And I'll want to confirm the other dimensions. You'll find that maybe due to the scanning processes, there are some errors that were accumulated. Okay. So as a result, you will not get it so perfectly correct. Nevertheless, at least you have something that to start with. As you can see, we already have an error there. One thing again, on our site plans, dimensions are always in meters, 2 decimal places. How do we get that? Just get that by going to the project preferences, you go to dimensions. And under dimensions, you'll select meters and put 2 decimal, okay? You can store if you want to. So maybe I can call it Oyuga meters. If I say okay and say okay, it will be adjusted, okay? Remember all these things, if you have to save them, you have to do a view setting. So if I save it there, I'll get it always that way. But what the highlight of this presentation was that while this is the easiest way of drawing a survey map, normally it comes with errors. And these errors are usually pretty sensitive if you want an actual representation of your project. So as I've said, I will do a detailed presentation of the various survey maps and how you can handle them, okay? Now, with this, we are more or less done. Maybe I might want to introduce my project north again. Remember, we had handled that, but allow me to introduce again. And I said follow project north. So if I place it there, it is. I might also want to quickly draft my boundary lines so that I don't rely so much on this drawing. Ignore my layering. For now, please ensure that when you're layering for you, do it properly, okay? So if I place there it is, but I've always, especially for our students, I've always insisted on creating what I usually call visual stability. You lose nothing by ensuring that your site plan, that part there is horizontal. All what will show us the north is the compass, okay? So do we achieve that? You achieve that by adjusting the set orientation. So for the set orientation, I want to adjust this orientation. And I want to make it horizontal. Okay, so you'll notice that that will move, that will also move. Everything will move, okay? And most importantly, the angle of orientation will be part of the predefined angles, okay? So with that, if I'm done with that, I'll just come and redefine right together. So let's see. As you can see, I can use it that way. If I want to revert to my zero, I can easily revert and continue. It does not distort anything in terms of modeling, in terms of orientation. It is just a presentation technique. So with that, allow me also to tick that we have imported the drawing and we have also done our survey map. So my friends, with that presentation, we have handled around 9 to 12 different activities. Kindly just practice. Where you have challenges, you can just inform me and we can have a discussion on that. Thank you.